What is up, YouTube? It's your girl Jo, and this is my baby Camber. Say hi. Say hi. If you're new here, then please subscribe to my channel. And if you're not new here, then welcome. What is up? How you doing? How you doing? Anyway, so today I'm going to do a video on her birth. Yay! She is 6 months, and I had her last year in July. July 15th is her birthday. So yeah, here it goes. It's a little crazy of a story, so bear with me. There's going to be some TMI, so if you are sensitive to that, then, I mean, you can fast forward through those parts, whatever. Oh, goodness, excuse you. Excuse you. Ow. Alright, so, when it all started, I was about 39 weeks, so I was almost 40. Well, no, I hadn't hit 39 weeks yet. I was still 38 and some change. I had a doctor's appointment, because you have, towards the end, you have a doctor's appointment every week. So I had my weekly doctor's appointment, and basically they checked me to see if I was dilated, and I was between a 2 and a 3, I want to say. Between a 1 and a 2. Between a 1 and a 2. And so I was between a 1 and a 2, and I was like, alright, cool, like, some people are still at a 0 before they're 40 weeks. So I was like, okay, cool, like, she's coming soon, she's coming. And by that point I was really big and uncomfortable, and I was just over being pregnant. My pregnancy was not that bad, but I was ready to have her. I was so over it. So I started trying like all the little myths that they say to do to induce labor, and everything from eating pineapple to walking. I bounced religiously on my yoga ball like every day, all day, every day. I was on that thing. And I was even drinking raspberry leaf tea, and I ate spicy food and all kinds of stuff. I tried everything, guys. I was ready to evict this little girl. Like, I was like, no, I'm done. I'm done. And I wanted to meet her so bad. So yeah, so I tried all that stuff, and I don't know, maybe the combination of everything did something. I don't know, but that Friday, the 13th, that night around like 10, I started to have like some leakage, and it felt weird. It almost felt like I was kind of like peeing myself a little bit, and that hadn't happened to me. So I was just like, okay, like, what is my water starting to break? Like, I Google everything, especially when it comes to health. Like, I'm like a freaking hypochondriac, so I was just like, okay, what's happening to my body? So I Googled it, and it said like, oh, you could be leaking, like, blah blah, and I was like, alright. So I just like wanted to wait and see what happened. I ended up going to the bathroom, and I lost what was my mucus plug. And the mucus plug, like, once you lose that, like, basically everything else starts happening. Like, not right away, but it's the start, basically, of labor. So I lost my mucus plug. I didn't know what it was at first. It was just like this bloody, mucusy, gross, like, loogie of a thing inside the toilet. And I was like, oh, what is this? So I Googled it, of course, and there's all these pictures. And I was like, yeah, I think that's what it is. I think we lost my mucus plug. So I was like, all right, here we go. And by that point, it was midnight, I think. 12 or 1, and I was like starting to freak out a little bit. I was like, okay, like, I feel this is happening, like, this is gonna happen. I don't know how long and when it's gonna start, but I started freaking out a little bit. And so I woke up my boyfriend, and I was like, hey, like, I lost my mucus plug, I'm starting to leak a little bit, I think I'm gonna be going into labor soon. And he was like, okay, like, he like he like jumped out of bed. I was like, okay, took a shower and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, it's not happening like right this second. And he was like, all right, well, let's rest and, so we'll see what happens. So around like, I want to say it was like 3 or 4 in the morning, I started having contractions. And I was like, all right, I have this app to time them. So I was like, all right, let me start timing them because, I want to see how far apart they are. At that point, they were really far apart. They were really mild, very mild, and very far apart. So I wasn't too worried about it just yet. I just kept trying to rest between them. And they were probably, I don't even remember how far apart they were. They're far. So I had time to rest a little bit in between each one. But, so then it was morning time the next day, and basically like my contractions started getting closer together, and I was like, okay, like I researched that, they don't want you to come in until they're about 3 to 5 minutes apart. So they finally got to about 5 minutes. And I was like, okay, like they were starting to hurt a lot more, like pretty bad period cramps. And I was like, okay, like let me go take a shower because I'm gonna be in the hospital for a while and gross, so I want to make sure I'm clean. And so I went and I took a shower and I had the water run on my back. I had the water run on my back, and that felt nice. Luckily, I didn't have any back labor. It was mainly just like contractions in the front. But I was still in some pain. And then, they started getting a little closer and closer. And every time I was having one, I had to like hunch over on the ground or on my yoga ball. And like Dean was like rubbing my back, and it got to a point where I was just like, okay, like I was like still 5 or 4, and I called the hospital, like, hey, this is where I'm at, and they're like, oh no, like, you're not there yet, like, we want them to be closer. How close do you want them to be? Like, geez Louise. They're like, oh, like, maybe like 3 minutes, like, call us back. Like, they're like, why don't you go eat something and, relax. I'm like, okay, like, because I can do that right now. And so I tried to eat something, but I just did not have an appetite, and I kicked myself later because I should have eaten more because I did not eat for a long time. But I had some bites and chilled, and they got to about 3 minutes apart, and I was like, okay, we need to go to the hospital because I am over this. They were hurting pretty bad. And so I called them back and told them, I barely could talk to them. And I was like, hey, they're 3 minutes apart. And they're like, all right, you can come in now. And so we packed all our stuff, and Dean drove us to the hospital. And it only took like maybe 10 minutes because it's not that far. And so we got there, and we had to park kind of far. I don't know why he didn't just drop me off, or I don't know why I didn't get like a wheelchair or something to get me to the entrance. I don't know, but he was like, all right, we gotta walk, like blah blah. And I'm like, okay, I'm in pain, I could barely walk, like this baby's gonna come out in the parking lot. We're not gonna make it inside. But so then like halfway through the parking lot, I feel something, and it felt like leakage, but like a good amount. I was like, I think my water's probably breaking more. And he was like, oh crap. And I was having contraction. I was like holding on to some random person's car. I was just like, oh my gosh. And so then we get there, and we get upstairs and to the triage area where they check you in, and we checked in. I went to a room where the triage room where they check you and all that stuff, but like before they admit you or whatever. And so in the triage, my nurse, she was this older lady, super nice. She came over to me, and I was having some contractions, man. I told her, I was like, hey, I think my water started breaking in the parking lot. Like, I felt something, and she was like, okay, let me check you. So she stuck her hand in there and checked me, and she's like, oh, your water is breaking, and then goes, hey, and then goes like, boop, and I feel like a gush, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like, oh my gosh, my water just broke. Like, she's like, well, I just broke it the rest of the way and whatnot. And so she was like, okay, and I started having a contraction, and I was just in pain, just yelling, and it hurt even worse because her hand was up there, and I was just like, dude, and she like looked at me, and she was like, hey, like, look at me, concentrate on me, and I was just like, what? She was like, you want to know why you're in so much pain? And I was like, why? Because I'm freaking having this baby? Like, duh. Obviously, she's coming. She was like, no, like, she's like, I can feel her head. It's really low. Like, she's like, you're 4 centimeters dilated. And I was like, oh, shit. Like, I'm already that far? Like, dang, okay. I was like, oh, okay, like, cool, I could get the epidural now. She's like, yeah, you can, but we need to take your blood and make sure that everything's good before we can do it. And I was like, okay, like, cool, like, okay, I see the light at the end of the tunnel, the epidural, the juice is coming, like, I want this pain to be gone. And so, what are you doing? So then, so they had someone come in to take my blood, and they took my blood, and they ran, they tested it really quick and stuff like that. The nurse came back in, and I'm in pain, especially now that my water's completely broken. Like, the contractions were coming on super strong, and I was just like, okay, like, where's this come on, where's this epidural, man? And so then the nurse comes in, and she's just like, all right, so here's the deal. Your platelets, the platelets, like, when they took my blood, they're like, your platelets are really low, like, they're kind of low, and I guess, like, some anesthesiologists, if they're too low, they'll refuse to do the epidural. So she's like, basically, he is saying that he doesn't want to do it. I was like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. Like, no, I need that epidural. Like, I'm not doing this. Like, praise all you freaking mothers out there that do it naturally or have done it naturally. Like, I can't do it, but kudos to you. Like, I was like, no, I'm not doing this. I started crying. I started freaking out. I was looking at Dean, like, my boyfriend. I was like, no, like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And he was just like, oh my God, like, this isn't good. And so then, like, I was just like freaking out, and the nurse could tell, and she was like, is this your first baby? And I was like, yeah, it's my first. And she's like, oh my gosh. She's like, okay, let me see what I could try to do for you, and, you know, just hold tight. Like, let me see what I could do for you. And I was like, okay. And so she's like, I'm going to go talk to some people. I'm going to talk to the doctor. I'm going to talk to the anesthesiologist again and, like, see what we can do. I was like, all right. So I just was dealing with the contractions, dealing with the pain, and just, like, still, like, having so much anxiety because I thought that I wasn't going to get my epidural. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, this isn't going how I planned. And so then she came back, she was like, all right, we're going to move you to your room. We're admitting you, like, you're having this baby with or without an epidural. And I was just like, okay. She's like, I'm still trying to figure it out with the epidural, but let's move you and get you comfortable. So they moved us to the room, and at this point, my contractions are coming strong. Like, they're so painful. I was in so much pain, guys, that, like, my eyes were, like, rolling in the back of my head, like, during the contraction. Like, I was, like, almost, like, borderline, like, blacking out. Like, that's how bad the pain was. And poor Dean, he was just, like, sitting there holding my hand, like, that's what I sounded like. That's what I sounded like, baby. He was like holding my hand and trying to like talk me through it and get me to focus on him, and I was trying, but I just could not. Like, I could not focus on anything. Like, I was just like, oh my God, this is it. Like, I'm dying. This is how it ends. I was just like, no, like, oh my God. Finally, what felt like forever, the nurse comes in and she's like, all right, so I talked to some people who talked to some people. No, but she was like, all right, like, I talked to the doctor, she talked to the anesthesiologist, and your platelets are not super low. They're just, they're like borderline, borderline being low, but still can be okay. She's like, so the anesthesiologist is going to give you that epidural. And I was like, oh, thank God. Thank you. Praise Jesus. So I was like, cool. So then, like, she told me, she was like, hey, like, just so you know, though, like, since he's doing this for you, like, you can't move when he's doing it, like, when he's giving it to you. You cannot move at all. And I was just like, okay. She's like, or else he's, like, not going to do it anymore or something. And I was like, okay. I was like, I'll try not to. It's going to be hard because I was in a lot of pain. So I was just like, okay, I have to, like, try to, like, brace myself while he does it. And I was so scared in the beginning before labor about the epidural because I am not good with needles. And I was like, okay, it's a huge ass needle going in my back. Like, that sounds terrifying. But at this point, my contractions were so bad that I was just like, you know what? Stick me. I don't even care. I don't even care how big it is. Like, I don't even care. Just give me the juice. And so, when he stuck the needle in, it was a big pinch. It hurt pretty good, but it was over within seconds, so it really wasn't that bad. Why are you being so fussy? That's not fuss. That's not fuss. So the needle went in, and then that wasn't that bad, but when he stuck the catheter in, because they had to stick a catheter through the spot, and it makes the medicine go into your back, into your spine, and so that was the weirdest part, because it was like this long tube thing, and you could just feel it go in your back and move around, and it was a weird feeling. It hurt. Well, it was uncomfortable. It didn't really, I don't know. It was uncomfortable. But I was like, you know what? My contractions are way worse, so I don't care. Like, let's do this. So finally he finished, and I was like, oh, thank God. Like, I was able to brace myself and stay still for the whole thing. They're like, it'll take 20 minutes for it to kick in, and I was like, okay. So I suffered a little bit more for 20 minutes, which is fine, though, because I knew that the medicine was coming, and I was like, okay, the pain's going to go away soon. Like, I can do this. I had motivation. So finally it kicked in, and I was feeling good. I was like, hell yeah, like, this is good. Like, I'm going to have a good experience. And so then, like, so then they told me, well, rest for like an hour. We're going to come back and check you and see where you're at and see if, like, maybe we should start pushing, blah, blah. I was like, okay, because by this point it was like nighttime. I want to say it was like before midnight that Saturday, the 14th. And, and so I was like, okay, I'll rest or whatever. I didn't sleep or anything because I couldn't. I was so anxious. So, like, Dean was able to sleep, but I was just like, no, I can't. So I watched some TV, and the hour flew by, and they came in, they're like, all right, let's check you. And I was like, all right. And they checked me, and I was already at 10 centimeters. I was like, okay, so dang, like, I can start pushing. And they're like, yeah, like, we're gonna start pushing, like, blah blah. So they bring in like some what? So they bring in like all their stuff and get ready and set me up. And so then she's like, we're gonna start practice pushing, and I was like, okay. So I started pushing and whatnot, and basically the practice pushing just was me pushing. I just started pushing. And nothing was really happening, but they could see the head and her hair. Dean looked down and was like, holy crap, like that's a lot of dark hair. I was like, oh my gosh. That explains the heartburn. So then I was pushing for a while, and the whole time I was pushing, the nurse was just like stretching me out, because that's what they do for you sometimes. If you have a good nurse, like, thank God that she was doing that, because I didn't rip as bad as I could have. So anyway, she was doing that, and then at this point I was pushing for like a couple hours already. They told me that max for your first baby to be pushing is about 3 to 4 hours. So I got to the 3 hour mark already, and I was like exhausted. I was tired. I was just like, oh my God, like this baby needs to come out. But like her head, I just couldn't get her head through. And I was just like, oh my God, like what's going to happen? Like, I don't want to do a C-section. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I was open for anything as long as my baby came and she was healthy. But I was just like freaking tired, guys. Like, pushing is like running like a marathon. Like, it's no joke. So I was just exhausted, and they're like, all right, like, you basically need to push her within the next hour, or else we're gonna have to turn down your epidural and basically make you feel pain again so that you could push her. And I'm like, oh, okay, no, I don't want to go back to that. I do not want to go back to that. So I was like, let's do this. I gotta do this. I have to. So then I was pushing, and finally I felt the pop of her head, like, popping out. And it didn't hurt, like, it just felt weird, like, really weird, like, a lot of pressure. And everything was all happy at first before that. Like, they're like, oh, Dean, are you gonna cut the cord, and like this and that, and like everyone's all happy. And the moment I pushed her head out, everything changed. Like, everyone got quiet. The room just got like bad vibes, like different, like way different. And I was like, what's going on? And everything happened so fast. Like, I couldn't really see what was going on down there, but like, it's just the doctor was like hurrying to get her out. And I see when she pulls her out, and she was purple. The baby was completely purple. And she pulled her out, and she was purple. She wasn't crying or moving. Her eyes didn't open. I was like, hey, like, what the heck? And they rushed her over to the incubator next to me, and I didn't hear her cry, didn't hear her make any noise, and I was like freaking out. I was like, no, like, is my baby dead? Like, I was like freaking out, guys. Like, that moment was probably way worse than any of the contractions, anything. Like, that was the worst moment of my entire life. Like, I was just like, my baby, like, is she okay? Like, is she alive? And the whole time I was holding Dean's hand, and we're just both staring over there, just locked. And they were like talking to her and trying to get her to breathe, and they're like, come on, baby, like, come on, baby girl. And then I started hearing her like making like gasping noises, and I was like, oh, thank God she's alive. She's alive. And they're like, okay, she's having a hard time breathing. We need to take her to the NICU. And I was like, okay. At this point, guys, I hadn't even touched my baby. I hadn't even had her on me, like, nothing. And I was just like so upset. I was like, dude, like, I just want my baby. And they're like, okay, well, we'll put her on you for like a minute, and then we gotta rush her. And I was like, okay. So they put her on me, and we had a little skin to skin, and I could just hear her gasping on my chest, and I was just like, oh my God, my poor baby. Like, I was just like, come on, like, you're okay. And, you know, I had my moment with her, which was nice, but it just wasn't how it was supposed to be. And then it was over too soon, and they took her, they're like, Dean could go with her. He's allowed to go down there with her, but we have to patch you up, and you have to stay, because basically I was still numb down there, like, so I couldn't walk or anything. So they're like, we'll wheel you to the NICU to see her on the way, taking you up to your room where you're gonna stay. And I was like, okay. So everyone leaves, right? And they sewed me up. I only had like a small tear like on the inside or whatever. So thank God I didn't have a really bad tear. But they sewed me up, and then the nurse got me a little bit of food because I was starving. And by this point, it was like 5 o'clock in the morning, and she's like, all right, like, I'll come back and get you. Like, you need to rest. So she just leaves, and like, it's like dark in my room, and I'm just sitting there by myself with nobody, no baby, no boyfriend, no family. Like, I was just by myself, guys. And I was like, what's happening with my baby? Like, I had no idea what was going on. I was just so upset. And like, finally, like, they got my dad. My dad came in with me, and thank God that he was there. And they told me basically like, yeah, your baby's stable. She's doing good. Your boyfriend's still down there with her, and like, whatever. So finally, when they were going to wheel me up to my room, they swung me by the NICU, and I was able to see her, but I couldn't hold her or anything like that just yet. But my little baby, just seeing her all hooked up and stuff, it was so sad. I was so sad. But it was really hard being up in the room and not, like, I was on the floor, and I heard, like, not on the floor literally, but my floor, I could hear other people's, like, babies crying and stuff, and I was just like, dude, just sitting in my room, like, just me and Dean without our baby, and I was just like, wish I had her, like, eh. But we went down to see her in the NICU, like, every hour or so. Like, we were down there a lot throughout the night, too. We would go down there to see her, and plus I still had to give whatever milk I had to for her. So she ended up being in there for only a couple days, and she progressed pretty fast and was healthy, and her little jaundice that she had was gone too, and she was doing really well. We were able to finally take her home at that point. So, and now look at her, my little bean. So I had her July 15, 2018 at 3:26 in the morning, and she was 6 pounds, 14 ounces, and 20 inches long. Long girl. It was long. It was long. When they were pulling her out, like, seriously, it was like one of those, like, I always say it was like, you know, like the clowns, and they're like pulling out the, like, the string from their, I don't know. It was like that, but pulling her out of my hoo-ha, so that's fun. Yeah, but, so that was my crazy birth story. Basically, the whole labor and delivery was kind of traumatizing for me, so yeah, I just, it was really intense, but you know what, it was all worth it in the end, and I'm so glad that she's okay, and she's healthy, and I have her, and everything worked out. You know, I had a good team helping me when I was in the hospital, so I had my family, and now I have my little bean, so life's good, and I'm happy, and yeah. But hope you guys enjoyed my story time of having this little one. Please like the video, and if you haven't subscribed already, please do, and we'll see you next time. Bye!